This podcast is part of the Some Buddies Network. You're never alone when you've got some buddies.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Best Darn Diddly Review Show. This is a weekly podcast for anyone who loves The Simpsons, or ever has loved The Simpsons, hosted by two dudes that grew up on The Simpsons. My name is Miles, better known as Mr. Most Days Off, and today we are putting our trust in the most responsible of The Simpsons, and the most responsible of the host of the Throwdown Thursday podcast. But we're going to talk about that in just a second. First, joining me, as always, your co-host with the most, Richie the Whiz Kid. How you doing today, Rich?
I am excited. We get some straight up action in this episode, so that's why we're going to need a little help to dissect this. But I can't wait to get into that. You know how I do this. I gotta throw it back to you. The man, the myth. He's disrespectful to dirt. Can't you see he is serious? It is Miles.
So today we are talking about the episode In Marge We Trust, which originally aired on April 27th. I put 2019, but that is definitely not wrong. It's 1997 was the answer. But today, we've got a special guest joining us from the Throwdown Thursday podcast. She is the Real Housewife of Transylvania and the Mistress of Merlot. Welcome to the show, Ashes von Nitemare. How you doing today, Ashes?
I believe this is going to be the most cromulent episode.
I love that prediction, and I couldn't agree more. So, Ashes, again, you are the co-host of the Throwdown Thursday I cannot talk today. Throwdown Thursday podcast. Patty Cakes, is your husband and co-host. He's been on the show before. This is your first time, but you're both Simpsons fans. So, talk to us a little bit about your earliest memory watching The Simpsons and how you came to be a fan of the show yourself.
Sure, absolutely. At this point, I'm kind of a Simpsons fan by proxy because my husband is such a huge fan of the show. He's been watching it since it aired. I believe half of our apartment is a shrine to Homer Simpson, and the other half is all Star Wars and sharks paraphernalia.
Careful, kids! You heard it here first. Simpsons fandom is an STD.
Yes, it is. So, wear your protection. But anyways, for me, I was born in the 80s, the mid-80s. So The Simpsons has really always been a part of the pop cultural zeitgeist. I remember, especially when I was younger, when the show was first airing, that there was a lot of Bart Simpson paraphernalia that was out. I remember that my dad had a shirt that said like Cowabunga on it, and it was Bart Simpson riding a skateboard, and he would go around saying, "Eat my shorts." And so I would go around saying, "Eat my shorts," because I heard Bart Simpson say it on the TV. And then my mom would be like, "Oh, I don't like that show. It's so fresh." It's so fresh.
That's hilarious because now fresh is like a well-known indicator of something being good. Like Rotten Tomatoes uses the fresh meter, and if something's considered to be fresh, it's like a good thing. It's hilarious to hear that as a slight against The Simpsons.
So yeah, I was like a casual fan growing up. It was just kind of something that was on, so I would watch it. There were some great episodes, but I never really paid much attention to it until I started dating this guy named Patrick. And when we first started dating, he's like, "Okay, there's one of two things." He's like, "I'm addicted to two shows right now, one being Lost and the other being The Simpsons." So in preparation for the final season, because we started dating before the final season of Lost aired, so I had to watch every single episode of Lost up to that point in order to prepare myself for the final season. Now, Patrick, as we all know, is very into conspiracies and whatnot, so he not only had all of the seasons on disc, but he had notebooks accompanying each various and just copious amounts of notes that he had taken. I literally had notebooks to study from, so
oh my goodness.
And I did this all in like the span of like a couple of months, and I thought my brain was going to explode, but it didn't. But as kind of like a diffuser for watching these episodes of Lost, which, you know, if you did watch Lost, you know how just absolutely bonkers some of these episodes were. And
I was going to tell you, I'm so glad your relationship has ended up much better than that series did.
Oh. Well, it's funny. I turned to him after the final episode of Lost, and all I could, I was so disappointed. I said, worst episode ever.
Yeah.
To him.
Did he get a huge boner like on the spot? Just like, ugh!
It was a partial boner because he was also, you know, very
he's too upset to be fully aroused. Yeah.
But the fact that I quoted The Simpsons, he was like, like ways right now. Yeah, to kind of like diffuse the whole brain headache that watching all of those episodes of Lost gave me. He's like, well, let's watch The Simpsons. And I was like, well, I don't know if I'm really into The Simpsons or not. Like, I kind of watched Family Guy, and I kind of watched American Dad and stuff like that, you know, on Adult Swim, going to sleep at night, because I used to watch the TV before I went to bed. So I just put on Adult Swim, and, you know, Futurama would be on and everything would be great. But I was more of a fan of Futurama than I was of The Simpsons at the time. And he was like, no. He's like, you need to watch The Simpsons, and you need to watch it in consecutive order. Not because the episodes really need to be watched in consecutive order. He's like, you'll just appreciate it more. So we did, and we've, you know, we're not caught up with some of the more recent ones, but for a while, you know, especially when they release the new seasons, not the new seasons, but releasing the older seasons on DVD each year, you know, we'll pick them up, and thanks to streaming services, you know, FX having every Simpsons ever, The Simpsons is always on in my house. Mm-hmm. So
it's kind of been forced upon you, and instead of fighting back, you're like, all right, I can kind of get into this.
He's like, you watch this, he's like, I'll buy you a bottle of wine. Okay.
Come on, a little Merlot and Martin for your evening.
Yeah, right? You know, Millhouse pairs very well with a rosé.
Nice. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And then after he gives you the wine, he sneaks in the notebooks for each Simpsons episode.
Yes, yeah. He's like, so pay attention to this one. When this one says this, just pay attention. It's like, oh my God, okay. Always a critic, but yeah, so it's just kind of an ingrained part of my life at this point. And seeing as my husband is almost like a live version of Homer Simpson, you know, I can watch these episodes and I sympathize, you know, empathize with Marge.
That might actually answer the next question I was going to ask you, and that was simply, you had a lot of great episodes to choose from, and I know that you had given me a list, and one of those was Homer's Enemy, which sorry, you got bumped for a Simpsons writer, dude, and I apologize. But you ended up picking In Marge We Trust, and you just said that you're basically married to a live-action Homer. Did that influence your decision when picking this episode to come and review with us today?
Well, it's okay. So this season has so many iconic episodes, and I really didn't realize that until, you know, you asked me which episodes I was interested in reviewing with you. And going through, I'm like, oh my God, I love that one. That one's great. That one is just so great. Like, that one's amazing. I'm like, oh my God, this season, you know, some seasons have a couple that stand out, but this season in particular has quite a few that are just like, oh my God, it's that episode. Actually, what really influenced my decision is the fact that we have a Mr. Sparkle magnet on our fridge. So that's pretty much what I was like, oh, I'm like, that's a really good episode, the Mr. Sparkle episode. Not only with the Mr. Sparkle storyline, but Marge has a really good storyline this episode too. And, you know, in Marge We Trust, it's Marge always knows what's best for everyone if they would just listen to her.
The listen lady. Listen lady. Yeah, so I actually remember this episode very fondly from when I was a kid. It used to be a favorite of mine, but I've been very guilty of this a lot, and this happened again. I completely did not associate the two storylines as being part of the same episode in this one. Like, I did not remember the Mr. Sparkle stuff in this is actually really the B plot of the episode. Like, it's what I think most people remember is the, Japanese commercial that Homer's in, but really that very, very much takes second fiddle to Marge's storyline in this episode.
But it's an episode where both storylines are so strong, they could each have been their own individual episode.
Agreed.
We've been talking about this for the last 2 seasons now. There's something about Bill and Josh. I didn't think we could get better from, from Merkin. But these guys, I mean, Ash has said it herself, it's hard to pick a great episode from them because they're all just so good. Like, it's really, really tough.
Yeah, actually, I kind of got this moment of dread, Ashes, while you were talking about that, because it dawned on me that we're only a couple episodes away from our finale of this season, and Richie and I are going to have to try to rank our top 5 favorite episodes of this season, which is just absolute torture for me personally.
Yeah, definitely. Hats off to you. Good luck with that. Condolences. Yes. That's going to be difficult.
Yeah, I don't even know how that's going to happen. There's probably going to be a lot of honorable mentions. We're just going to list out the season. Yeah, very much could actually happen. So let's go ahead and dive into this episode today. Like I said, we're talking about In Marge We Trust, which originally aired on April 27th, 1997, not 2019. This episode did not have a chalk gag. It went straight to the couch gag, which we'd seen before, but it's very funny. It is the Vend-A-Couch. I will go ahead and just mention the list of names on the commentary for this episode, because there were quite a few of them. We had Matt Groening, Yeardley Smith, David Conan, Dominic Carey, Josh Weinstein, and Alex Rocco, who is usually the voice of Roger Myers Jr., and had absolutely nothing to do with this episode, but just happened to be in the building and was like, yeah, I'll hang out for some free lunch. His words. Another thing that happens when we have so many names on the commentary, I've talked about this before as well, there really wasn't a lot of information given on this episode. Like, they talk a lot, but really they're just joking and laughing and having a good time reminiscing, which is really enjoyable to listen to, don't get me wrong, but in terms of having, like, fun behind-the-scenes facts to present to you fine folks tuning into this podcast today, it does not always bode well for me, which is why I'm so grateful today to have our guest, Ashes von Nitemare from the Throwdown Thursday podcast, to help fill in and add some color commentary to this episode as we go along. We open up early Sunday morning where we see
Not with TV, right? Not with TV again.
Always with TV. It's a very common thing we see. The Simpsons watching TV to open the episode. This case, it's Bart and Lisa who are like sitting like inches from the television, trying not to wake their parents, it would seem, as they are watching the Itchy and Scratchy show.
You know this episode's going to be good when it opens up with an Itchy and Scratchy bit.
A lot of the TV episodes that do are much better when they're Itchy and Scratchy related. Because, yeah, it's either Itchy and Scratchy or Ion Springfield or like a Duff commercial are like their 3 go-tos. But Itchy and Scratchy is always a strong open. And I do really appreciate this one. It's death comedy blam. We see the Itchy dressed as a doctor. It's all about ear trauma, and he basically puts this ridiculous contraption. It actually reminds me from Harry Potter. It reminds me of extendable ears. So I guess kind of Simpsons did it. I don't know. But they just put this contraption into Scratchy's ears where he's suffering from ear trauma, and Itchy takes the other end of the device all the way to a nuclear testing site where he actually, like, plays the blast into this device. You can see the sound travel all the way back to the hospital where it literally explodes Scratchy's head right off.
And to be fair, he probably had ear trauma from another incident revolving around Itchy, so it's probably a double whammy in this scenario.
I know that, like, canonically it would not make sense, but I would have really loved it if the dog in the next bed that shushes Scratchy would have been Poochie.
I actually have a note right here in front of me. Is that Poochie? Question mark?
It doesn't look like Poochie to me. It looks very similar.
He died on the way back to his home planet. What are you talking about?
That's why I said it wouldn't make sense, but I think it'd still been funny. Better yet, Roy.
Ooh.
So we see Bart and Lisa laughing to themselves, and my script here says who wouldn't. I think that's really funny. But the laughter actually wakes up Marge.
Well, I like this moment at first because you can tell that they're trying to be quiet, which, like, you kind of remember those feelings where you're trying to watch TV really early in the morning and not wake your parents, but you don't know why Bart and Lisa are doing it. So it had a little mystery to it, and I really liked the feeling that I got watching that moment. It was just little minor details that go a long way.
That's totally fair, yeah, and this is very reminiscent of, like, Saturday mornings when you'd wake up and it's like it's like the one day your parents are sleeping in, so you know if you wake them up, they're going to be pissed, but you also want to watch Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Exactly.
I feel that. Marge sits up in bed and she's actually holding the covers up, but it's almost like she has like a like instinct or like an internal alarm going off. Oh my goodness, kids! Homer, we're late for church! I'm glad I dressed last night. She gets out of bed fully dressed. A stupid visual gag, but it's so funny.
Well, it's funny because I actually used to do that in my college days.
Oh, no.
I would go out, drinking with my friends and stuff, and what I would wear is something that would be equally appropriate to wear the next day to the job that I had at the local Payless shoe store when those were still around.
Wow.
Yeah. So I knew that if I slept, and of course, for me, if I got drunk, when I passed out, that was it. I wasn't moving. So I knew if I propped myself up a certain way before I passed out and stuff, I would wake up and my face would still be freshly painted.
And you can just walk right out the door.
People would be like, oh, you look great. And I'm like, thanks.
Ashes, I do want to point out that if you were dressing in a manner that was both appropriate for going out to the club and also going to work at Payless, you were either like the lamest club dresser or like really pushing the boundaries of the Payless dress code.
That I was and still am a very classy broad.
I just love that that's the range.
I appreciated that bit. I was like, oh, hey, been there, done that. Not for church, though, but been there, done that.
That is really funny, yeah. Just the fact that you, like, could prop yourself in a way that you're like, no need for makeup or hair. I'm good to go.
Right? I mean, it's a very uncomfortable sleeping position, but when you've had just a couple, too many cocktails, you really don't, it doesn't matter what position you prop yourself up in, because you're going to pass out regardless.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's going to be a hard sleep regardless of how you're positioned.
Right. So, I used to kill two birds, one stone. So I could appreciate that Marge, thought that far ahead and.
I picture more of the, like, shotgun blast with the makeup where, like, you think it's okay, but really that's just more of what it looks like by the next morning, but you're like, good to go.
But you got that hungover blurred vision, so you're like, it looks fine to me.
Yeah, and everyone's just being nice to you. Oh, you look so nice. Thanks.
You
know what? It all depends. It's fine. It's fine. From my perspective, it was fine. It was fine. It was all good.
You know what? I respect you for going to class in general, because I was definitely more of the Homer here in this situation who replies, oh, I'd love to go with you, honey, but I've got a lot of work to do around the bed. I definitely hit the alarm way too many times and just would not go to class, regardless of what I fell asleep in.
I've actually, my husband has used that line on me before. I'm like, sweetie, come on, you have to get up. And he's like, no, I have too much work to do around the bed.
That's awesome. I feel like, I think, like, I would have to argue, like, at least 35 to 45% of your marriage is just Simpsons quotes. Like, you might not even always be aware, both of you, going both directions. I think you, like, just use them so frequently at this point that, like, they just kind of pass through as normal conversation.
That's absolutely correct. It's just kind of ingrained into our personalities at this point. My subconscious is just swimming in Simpsons quotes, just looking for something to use at a moment's notice.
Hey, dental plan.
Lisa needs braces.
Yeah, that's the true test with everybody right there. It's just like they always just pop out with that, and it's almost like a secret handshake. So Marge points out, Homer, the Lord only asked for an hour a week.
Well, in that case, you should have made the week an hour longer. Lousy God.
Honestly, that's a really valid fucking point.
Gosh.
So the family does make it to church, and they find that Reverend Lovejoy is doing a speech or a sermon on the 9 tenets of constancy, which is just as exciting as it sounds. Homer at one point kind of falls asleep in church and hits his head on the pew and yells out in a quiet crowd, "Damn it!" Which causes Reverend Lovejoy to lose his place, so he elects to start over again.
No.
At some point, you see this great pan out, like kind of over the shoulder of Reverend Lovejoy, where you can just see the entire congregation. I kind of got it that time. Is is just like fast asleep. Even Marge, though, Marge is like nodding off. So I mean, I feel like that is kind of like the tipping point for Marge, who like went to church excited. And even she's nodding off, and it gets even worse when they get home, which I do love, and I will say they also talked about this on the commentary, like, who does not love the joy of getting home in formal clothing and just immediately ripping your pants off?
Oh, yeah.
Like, that is just true joy, bliss right there.
Well, at church, I wanted to say, like, I think you saw Lenny in front of the Simpsons. I think it was Lou sitting next to him. It was somebody I couldn't recognize, and then I realized it looked like Lou's mustache. He just wasn't wearing his cop uniform. He was actually in like formal gear, so it was hard to recognize him. So to tie into that, I mean, I know Lou was ready to get back and put that cop hat on.
Yeah, I mean, that would make sense that cops would also have to wear like street clothes now and again, right?
I don't think I've ever seen Lou in like normal attire outside of his cop uniform before.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I have either.
There you go. Random tangent. You're welcome.
When the kids do get home, and Homer as well, really the whole family, they all immediately, like I said, start tearing their clothes off. Marge is protesting, telling them that they're wrinkling them. Homer points out, who cares? This is the best part of the week.
It's the longest possible time before more church.
Honestly, that's another line that just totally resonates. Like, not specifically with church, but like I've definitely had that feeling like about like work, especially Richie, like when we worked in jewelry and whatnot. Like there are times where it's like you'd get off and you'd have like a day and a half before you get back, and you're just like, oh, sweet, merciful Jesus that I don't believe in.
Putting words in my mouth. But I use that line all the time since the first time I saw this episode for any situation it is appropriate. But yes, most of the time it's in reference to work.
Yeah.
I love that line.
Marge also points out here, church shouldn't be a chore. It should help you in your daily life.
It should, but it doesn't. Now who's going with Daddy to the dump?
Me! And the kids are actually excited, and Marge has the only logical reaction here, like the dump. But Homer explains that they're going to actually get rid of the Christmas tree because it's, quote-unquote, starting to brown. This thing is dead. I mean, just completely dry as a bone. Like, surprised it hasn't started a fire type of thing yet. And also, this episode aired in April, so this would imply that this is a good 4 months after Christmas.
Woohoo! But it's so relatable because I know those people.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Oh.
I would be one of those people, like, but my tree is fake, so it's fine. And also, more often than not, I'm just too lazy to put it up to begin with, so it's not problematic.
Same, yes, but yeah, I know those people. Like, you should probably get rid of that.
Is Patty that people?
Oh, no, we're to a tree at this point.
It's funny. So, Marge elects not to go to the trash pile, but Homer's like, well, it's your life. We'll bring you back something nice. Oh, yeah. Please pass.
That actually makes me laugh a lot because, so we have family that live down on Cape Cod, and Cape Cod is a whole little just cesspool of society all on its own. And when you go to the dump there, they actually have something called the gift house, quote unquote. I've never visited there, but my mother-in-law likes to bring us presents back from the gift house. And what it is, it's, decent quality stuff that people want to get rid of, but can't find any other means of getting rid of it. Like, they tried to sell it at a yard sale and it wouldn't sell. They tried to give it away at a yard sale and it wouldn't sell. So it ends up in the gift barn. So people can just kind of go in and peruse and take what they want. So there are times when you can actually come back from the dump with more junk.
Yeah, where I live, if you go to the junk pile, it is a place that you basically got lost and, are trying to find a way to turn around. That sounds like the type of pickin' that you would find on, a reality TV show where somebody changes their life by pulling out, some diamond engagement ring that, somebody from Cape Cod accidentally threw away. Versus, here, where it's yeah, that's an old shoe. And there's no laces, and they've stepped in at least 3 different types of animal excrement.
I also loved how the kids were really excited to go to the dump, because I remember when I was a kid being really excited. Dad's like, I'm going to go to the dump. It's like, can I go with you? It's like, looking back on it, it's like, why the hell did I want to go to the dump?
Yeah.
Why? Why? It's just, I don't know. Was it fun to see all the, broken, thrown away refrigerators or something? I don't know. But yeah, so I appreciated that part as well. That part was really relatable because, kids love to do really weird things. So yeah, the dump.
Now that you say that, honestly, I feel like as a kid, I had the idea of the dump being a cool place that you could find fun treasures. And it wasn't until I actually went to a dump ever that it was oh, no, this isn't what I thought it would be.
Well, you think it's going to be these giant mountains of stuff you can walk around with, too, and, it's more like The Office when they go with Dwight and Michael will go there, and you're like, oh, God, why?
You can, smell it through the TV.
Yeah, it's you don't imagine it smelling so bad as well.
Very much so. But, hey, the Simpsons kids are off to go to the dump with their father, but Marge decides that she decides that she's going to go and visit Reverend Lovejoy instead, who's actually putting up the next Sunday's church sign, which is, I don't know why I appreciate that so much, because we always get such a kick out of the church sign so often when we read it. The idea that Reverend Lovejoy does this every Sunday afternoon somehow makes that even funnier to me. And he's immediately bitching about the fact, he's like, can you believe it? They give you 5 Qs and only 2 Us. What a world.
It's so true, which already takes up half the U's that you get.
But Lovejoy stops what he's doing to have a conversation with Marge in his office.
Sermons about constancy and provocatude are all very well and good, but the church could be doing so much more to reach out to people.
Oh, I don't see you volunteering to make things better.
Well, okay, I will volunteer.
I wasn't prepared for that.
You thought he put her in her place.
I love that exchange, and honestly, I feel like that's so usually true. I think the reason that's so funny is that is so usually the truth, and especially, I would say, even more in April of 2019 than April of 97. Maybe that's why I did that. Now with the use of social media and stuff like that, it's so easy for people to talk about things they don't like, but it's not a lot of people actually making actions to change those things.
Ooh, someone's speaking from a little experience, maybe with a recent Twitter interaction they had.
I honestly don't even know what you're alluding to. I get into these situations a lot.
Oh, okay.
Don't we all?
We do see that Marge is on board to help out at the church, and back at the dump, we actually see that they are technically having success. It takes all 3 of them to force the tree out of the car, and I love that all the...
They're pushing it through the window. They didn't even open the door.
Immediately, Homer's like, well, with the chores out of the way, it's time for some fun. Okay, who's up for some scrounging? See? There's a perfectly good basketball half right here.
Oh. I found a Malibu Stacy with no head.
Squeak, squeak, squeak. Ah! It's a rat head pops out of the Stacy torso. But then as Homer starts laughing at her, the raccoon does the very same thing to him in his basketball half.
But then he asked Lisa for help. Oh my God, help me, Lisa! And I know you'll disagree with me, but I'll just point out the fact that this animal attacked Homer until Bart noticed the box.
What's in the box? Bart's a Beastmaster is what you're trying to say?
Until he got distracted by a certain box he found. As soon as he says the line, the raccoon leaves Homer alone.
Alright, you know what? Admittedly, I still don't buy your theory from all the other evidence that I've argued with you on this very program in the past, but I will say that this instance actually gives it a little bit of, credence. I will say there's a little bit of, I can kind of see what you're talking about. Ashes, if you're not familiar with this, we have several theories. This one we both agree with, that Maggie is in fact magical. I think that she's a Muggle-born witch, actually. We think that Homer is very much unbreakable, like Bruce Willis from that movie Unbreakable. And
what?
Also, this is where we differ, because Richie believes that Bart is a Beastmaster, and I think training. That's ridiculous.
He's a Beastmaster in training.
I could see both sides with that. Especially with his relationship with the dog and Small too, and you know.
I mean, Bart gets attached to every animal that he comes in contact with for the most part in the series.
All right, what we're going to do on one of these finales, maybe this one, maybe next one, I don't know, we'll talk about it, but we are going to get a panel. We are going to get a panel of people who are not Richie or myself, who have theories, so Ashes, Patsy, Toby, there's a lot of people in the community we're going to reach out to, but we're going to do a panel, and we're going to debate once and for all Beastmaster Bart. We're going to make that happen. I just thought of it, so why not formally announce it in the moment? That's always smart.
You gotta get people from both sides.
For what it's worth, I have no idea. Ashes just had the most neutral answer ever, and I have no idea what anybody else's opinion on this is, so I really don't even know how to vet what side they're on.
You know, I'd have to look into it first.
Sorry, I didn't think about what you said, Miles, until you said that.
I was like, no one picked up on vet, come on!
Oh, I hate you.
Let's get back to scrounging, and back to this episode. So, Bart comes upon a box, like Richie alluded to, that distracts him, and he's staring at it in disbelief, because what he has found is a box with Japanese writing on it. It's a pink box, and it has a picture of his father's face right there. And immediately Lisa and Homer come over and see this thing, and Homer is just completely bewildered by this. They all are, really. What the heck is that?
Maybe it's a box from the future.
It looks Japanese.
What's going on? Why am I on a Japanese box?
So they just leave you right there with that. You have no idea what's happening. You just see Homer is apparently an advertisement somewhere. We cut back to Marge, who's helping out Lovejoy around the church. She tells him that she swept the aisles, put all the collection plates in the dishwasher, and you wouldn't believe how many dead pigeons there were in the organ.
Marge, you are a real time saver. Do you know, thanks to you, that I discovered a form of shame that's gone unused for 700 years?
Wow! Ring, 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 ring.
Lovejoy here.
Reverend? Oh, I thought this was Ned, my bad. Reverend, this is Principal Skinner. I'm facing a crisis, and I didn't know whom to turn.
All right.
Mother's gone too far. She put cardboard over her half of the television. We rented Man Without a Face. I didn't even know he had a problem. What should I do?
Well, maybe you should read your Bible.
Any particular passage?
Oh, it's all good.
Just the whole thing is fine. But Marge is kind of concerned with the helpful advice that she just witnessed the Reverend give, and she actually brings it up to him a little bit, but he explains to her that after he graduated from seminary school, the 60s were long over, and people were once again ready to feel bad about themselves. We get a flashback to the mid-70s where we see a much younger Reverend driving to his brand new church assignment, and he barely has time to get set up before he meets his very first customer, Ned Flanders.
Reverend, I'm afraid something terrible has happened.
Well, sit down and rap with me, brother. That's what I'm here for.
I was talking to doing a dance called The Bump, but my hip slipped and my buttocks came into contact with the buttocks of another young man.
I see. And that's his first encounter with, of course, Ned Flanders, who's already having issues with his sexual identity, it would seem.
It was the 70s.
I don't mean really his identity as much as just, like, I picture Flanders being the type of guy that's just been, like, completely uncomfortable with the idea of having any sexual desire at all. Like, it just makes him uncomfortable.
Well, I mean, his wife is an evil monster, but we'll get into that.
Another theory, yeah. That one where
yeah.
I also see your. I feel like that one's more valid than Beastmaster, but we'll get there. Flanders goes on to talk about how he's worried that he's coveting his own wife.
I just have a note here that says Ned fucking Flanders.
Yeah, that's accurate.
I'm meek. I could probably stand to be meeker.
And this is where we see that Reverend Lovejoy is kind of developing a hobby for playing with toy trains or model train kits, which I actually think is pretty dope. I'm not going to lie. I think those train collection things are really cool when people make those and go all out and whatnot. But it seems to be kind of his way to tolerate the nonsense that he's having to deal with. An escape from reality.
I may have swallowed a toothpick.
But finally, he just stopped caring. Luckily, by then it was the 80s, and no one noticed.
So true.
And we cut back to the present, where Marge points out, but you can't let a few bad experiences sour your helping of people.
Oh, sure I can.
But when the phone rings this time, they decide that Marge should answer the call. Me? But I can't. Hello?
Yeah, I'm calling for Reverend Lovejoy. Who's this?
Oh, well, this is, the Listen Lady.
Yeah, well, listen, lady. I got so many problems, I don't even know where to begin here.
Listen Lady gets me every fucking time. I love that so much. I'm the Listen Lady. Yeah, well, listen, lady. I love that. So Mo is going on about how he's lost the will to live. Marge immediately, with just a kind few words, gets him off the ledge, so to speak. And Mo is even shocked. He's like, really? That's not what Reverend Lovejoy's been telling me. Wow, you're good at this.
It was such a little thing. But the other part that I feel like is a minor detail again is they let Marge recognize that it's Mo. And she actually says his name too, which it adds that little personal touch to it, which is kind of like her whole spiel in this episode.
She specifically says, that's ridiculous, Mo. You've got lots to live for, which is a very simple thing to say. That, like,
yeah.
You could literally say that to any stranger on the street and probably be correct about it. Too dark? Okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's like,
fair enough. But it turns out Marge really does seem to have a knack for this, but as soon as she hangs up the phone, it immediately starts to ring again.
Hi, it's me again. I got another problem. This one's about my cat.
Meow!
Yeah, shut up, I'm asking her.
And that brings us to the end of our first act. We're going to go ahead and take a very quick break, and we'll be right back with Act 2 of In Marge We Trust.
Hey guys, I'm here to talk about a serious problem today. One that can affect us all, but it's also a problem that can be fixed with everyone's help. I'm Richie the Whiz Kid, and I'm talking about podcasts. So many podcasts in the Somebodies Network need your help. They are being malnourished. Some are living in terribly harsh conditions, and some are Canadian. But with your help, a corner can be turned for these poor podcasts, especially in regards to Best Darn Diddly. You can go to popthreads.com and use the code Simpsons at checkout. Or you can buy Best Darn Diddly merch at tpublic.com. Most importantly, you can go to patreon.com/bestdarndiddly to donate now for as little as $1 a month. For less than 4 cents a day, you can bring a smile to these poor podcasters' faces. So let's work together to end the poverty of these podcasts. Let's be honest, you were probably just going to get a Krusty Burger with that dollar anyways. Cut to the pictures of starving podcasts.
We come back from our break and come to dinner at the Simpsons home, where we see Homer kind of questioning Marge's decision to volunteer at the church. He's like, do you know that so-called volunteers don't even get paid?
I mean, see, Homer's got the smarts.
I feel that, yeah. Marge explains the benefits to him, but he interrupts her when she sees the box that Homer picked up at the dump, the one with his very own image on it.
Homer, will you get that crazy box off the dinner table? It came from the dump.
But Marge, I'm obsessed with it. Where did it come from? What is that box of? How'd my face get on it?
Hey, if they got a picture of you, that means they can see you. They're probably watching us right now.
Shout out to Toby from the Secret Transmission podcast. That's ridiculous. Nobody's watching us right now. And they do this great fourth wall break where they all just stare directly into the camera, which is a fun joke. Let's be real.
They always appreciate a meta joke.
Yeah, same. Especially when you've earned it. And at this point, they've earned it. They've been on the air for so long. If you do this in your first episode, like I'm assuming Family Guy probably did 17 times and held it for 40 minutes each, even though that would be a really long episode, it doesn't count. Homer actually does something he doesn't often do. Homer's actually putting effort into finding out how his face got on this box, and they show up to this company where he hands this box to this man named Akira, and they basically are trying to figure out. The guy points out, yes, this is a product called Mr. Sparkle, very popular dish detergent. Hey, he looks like you.
And this is actually the Happy Sumo restaurant where he got the blowfish in the earlier seasons. It's the same assistant chef guy, Akira. They had to take over while his master was with the teacher.
I was just about to say, I wonder if his boss is out back with Krabappel. That wouldn't work now, because I think they're supposed to be with us, or she's supposed to be with Skinner now, right?
Right. That's right. There's lots of people he can find that want a little sushi.
That nice. So Akira goes on to explain that the box, the guy in the box identifies himself as a magnet for foodstuffs. He boasts that he will banish dirt to the land of wind and ghosts.
Wow.
Yes, you have very lucky dishes, Mr. Simpson. This soap is from the sacred forest of Hokkaido, renowned for its countless soap factories.
Hokkaido, eh?
And look, I love how it shows like Homer's like deep in thought, like he actually recognizes, like, oh yeah, Hokkaido, I know that.
Oh, he's coming up with a plan, and I like it.
So back at the First Church of Springfield, the Listen Lady is in, and she's got clients for sure. It seems like it's a very popular service they're starting to offer. Lenny's talking to Marge. See, all along, I've been telling Carl I'm married to a beauty queen, and now he's coming over for dinner.
Oh, Lenny, I'm sure he'll like your wife no matter what she looks like.
No, it's worse than that. I don't even have a wife. I just said I did to, be a big shot.
Oh, well, it's time to start telling the truth. Now, when I have to tell my husband the truth, I cook him a big, delicious dinner. By the time he's done eating, he's too full and tired to care what I have to say.
Wow, that's great. When Carl comes over, I'll stuff him till he don't know what's what.
Marge for the win.
We actually follow Lenny out of the office, and you can see there's a long line of people waiting to see Marge, but it's actually Agnes and Skinner who are out in the hall. Seymour, I'm getting tired. Tell them that we're going next.
Well, I'm not principal of the line, Mother.
And you never will be.
Oh.
They're at like the very end of a very long line for what it's worth.
It's Kirk Van Houten, Ruth Powers, the Skinners, Dr. Nick, Miss Hoover, and Larry the Barfly are the ones that my guidebook mentions that are in line.
Nice. Back with Homer, he's actually following his lead to the Springfield Library, which I just assume Lisa's got to be helping him with this, right? Like, he doesn't know how to do this on his own.
What, go to the library?
Exactly.
Yes! That's exactly what I mean.
Whoops.
He's had to, like, ask Lisa, like, what's the library for?
It's next to the crime.
Yes. He was probably like, well, we're boned. And Lisa was like, the library.
Yeah, that's probably what happened, yeah. But so I kind of threw a little dig at Family Guy earlier, and for what it's worth, I actually do like the show Family Guy. I've talked about it many times. I think that it's a completely different type of humor from The Simpsons. I do think it's a lot less of a thinking show. I think it's more of a, like, turn your mind off type of show. But there is a type of joke that Family Guy is very well known for, and that's the, like, hold the joke for so long that it stops being funny, and then it starts to be funny again. And there's moments in The Simpsons that we see, like, shortened versions of that like, actually work pretty well, that I think heavily influence those jokes later on, like when Family Guy does come around, because this is still before Family Guy has even hit the airways. But the joke I'm talking about here is he's dialing a number for Japan, and he's having to look it up in the Japanese phone book, which the commentators do point out, wouldn't that be vertical and in Japanese? Like, wouldn't he not know how to read it? But also, he has a very long dial tone for each number, so it's like, as he's dialing, it's like, beep, 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 beep. And that goes on for about, like, 15 digits, I think. It goes on for longer than most Simpsons jokes do, but still much shorter than most of those Family Guy jokes that are very similar to this tend to run.
See, I really liked, it might be my favorite part of the episode, at least through this watch through it was, because it made me bust out laughing while I was taking notes, was the conversation he had with the librarian right before he started calling on the phone, when he asked for a phone book for Hokkaido, Japan, and he gave him the phone book, and then he's like, may I use your telephone to make a call? And the librarian...
Is it local?
Yes. Like that, the yes just broke me when I was taking notes, and it's just another great short line by Dan that he just makes absolutely hilarious.
For sure. On the other end of this very long dialed phone call, we see a Japanese man answer, hello? And sorry, this is in Japanese, it's subtitled. I'll read it in subtitles, just so everyone's clear.
No, you gotta, I need native language. I need native language or it takes me out the scene.
Authenticity, damn it.
Yes, this is Homer Simpson from America. Who may I say was speaking to me?
He speaks English, you take it. And he hands the phone off to another worker. This one's very, very heavily accented, which I'm not going to attempt. Hello, Chief. Let's talk. Why not?
Hello. Why am I Mr. Sparkle?
You like Mr. Sparkle?
Well, I am Mr. Sparkle.
You have many questions. Mr. Sparkle, I send you premium. Answer question. 100%. And this seems to at least please Homer for the moment. He seems like his search for answers is going to yield some results. But for now, we're going to cut back over to the Listen Lady, who is becoming so popular in church that it's kind of taking away from Reverend's job in a lot of ways. Like, he's finding himself not as needed as he once felt because Marge is doing such a good job helping everyone out.
I'm starting to see it's one of those things where he didn't notice that he missed it until he no longer had it.
Yeah, like, even during, like, the sermons and whatnot, he's getting cut off to, like, people to, like, maybe Marge should do it type of stuff. And it makes Reverend Lovejoy come to the conclusion that he's a shepherd without a flock. And when he looks upwards to the sky, it seems like he's having a moment of maybe prayer or just conversation with the Lord. What have I done to lose them? And we actually see one of the stained glass windows come to life.
I'm not good with saints, but the real question is, what have you done to keep them?
Saint Eleutherius of Nicomedia!
That's my name, don't wear it out.
And then we see Saint Bartholomew come to life. To inspire men, you must be brave. I introduced Christianity to Mongolia. It didn't take, but it was worth a try.
And then Saint Lucian. Tell us, good Reverend, what great deeds have you done to inspire the hearts of men?
Lovejoy starts to respond, but is cut off by Saint Danichus. I've appeared in over 8,000 visions, and that's the lamest reply I've ever heard.
Well, because Lovejoy says he had the vestibule recarpeted.
Yeah.
Words are tough today.
Oh, now please. I thought saints were supposed to be friendly.
You're just lucky God isn't here.
And as the light fades, the windows go back to normal. Marge actually gets a call later, though, from the Reverend's wife, Mrs. Lovejoy, who is looking for a way to cheer her husband up. But Marjorie assures her he probably just needs a couple of days to himself, and that he'll get his confidence back, and everything will be A-okay. But you can tell that Mrs. Lovejoy isn't convinced, and as we see Reverend Lovejoy, he's very melancholy as he plays with his trains.
But Marge is right. Marge gives good advice in this moment, and she's technically right by the end of the episode. Spoiler alert. But the whole thing that makes you feel uncomfortable is the cut back to Helen Lovejoy, where she still looks really upset at the end. And that little part always bothers me for some reason. I feel okay with it up until it cuts back to Helen.
Interesting. I don't know if does Reverend Lovejoy really just need a couple days? If he does a couple days without doing anything, it doesn't seem to me that he's going to get the peace he wants from having his flock back unless he just becomes comfortable not having a flock anymore.
I mean, in a couple days, is he going to be okay?
Interesting. Ashes, do you have any thoughts on that?
Marge is probably speaking from experience.
Mm-hmm.
She has experience with Homer, which, I mean, obviously it's a completely different situation, but she's trying, just give him a couple of days. It'll be fine, and if you think about it, that's kind of a real life experience too, sometimes it's just all you need is just a couple of days to cool off and you'll be fine. So, and I think Marge also kind of feels a little on the spot almost because, she's doing a great job and she's not trying to take away from Reverend Lovejoy's job, but at the same time, he was the one who didn't want to do that job in the first place, which is why he pawned it off on Marge. So Marge is doing the job. She's doing a good job, but now Reverend Lovejoy is feeling put out. So I kind of feel like she's just coming from a place where, well, maybe in a couple of days everything will just work itself out. Maybe people will stop listening to me and want to listen to him again. I don't know, I feel like it was just to kind of put her on the spot, especially because it was coming from Mrs. Lovejoy.
Yeah, the town gossip and the part of the PETA pack that screwed Marge over, so screw Helen.
Right? I mean, she doesn't want to give her too in-depth advice because she doesn't want, Mrs. Lovejoy to go off and say nonsensical things, and make up rumors and stuff about her. So
maybe Reverend Lovejoy needs help from the one source that he would least expect it. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Where it all began, yeah. Interesting. I do like his kind of little sad moment with his trains. Attention, Ho-Scale passengers. The dining car is closed. Root beer is still available, but the cost is now $6.50. If the passengers will look to their right, you will see a sad man. That is all. It's silly, but it's also very sad and
committed to the bit.
I don't think any of us talk to trains, but we've all probably had moments where we were doing whatever, where you're kind of talking to yourselves I suck. This is awful.
I want to see what happens when Sheldon Cooper goes over to his basement.
Oh my goodness, that'd be funny. Good crossover event. We see back at the Simpsons home once again, Homer and Bart are watching TV when Lisa runs into the room, waving a package that came from the Mr. Sparkle Company in Japan.
And we see lots of the packing peanuts falling out of the package before Homer is impaled by a video cassette.
He still manages, even with all the safety packaging, he still gets hit in the eye with the edge of a tape, which is funny. And it's a VHS tape, which goes in a VCR, which is a thing that was before DVD players, which is now what Netflix is. When they put the video on, it's once again a Japanese man, and he's talking in a heavy accent. Oh, hello, American investor. I see you are interested in distributing Mr. Sparkle in your home prefecture. You have chosen wisely. But please, don't believe me. Observe this commercial. And we get an insane commercial play, is really what happens. It starts with a Japanese housewife wearing a futuristic Jetsons-like clothing. She's loading a dishwasher, and then when she pulls out a whistle, it summons Mr. Sparkle, who looks just like Homer Simpson. The head actually jumps off the box, floats around, it starts sparkling. It's a very Japanese commercial. It ends up at some point with dancing girls that turn into sumo wrestlers. What else am I missing?
He says he's disrespectful to dirt. Can't you see that I am serious?
Can't you see that I am serious? Yeah.
And
the dancing women that turn into sumo wrestlers, that of course happened underwater. I forgot to mention. I thought that was implied.
Homer also wants to live under the sea.
Under the sea. That's true. Mr. Sparkle yells at the end, "Out of my way, all of you! This is no place for loafers. Join me or die. Can you do any less?"
What a brave corporate logo! I accept the challenge of Mr. Sparkle.
Awesome power!
As best as we could do without going full having angry tweets sent at us mode.
Yeah, well, and not only that, but this is a very visual demonstration, this commercial, and we're doing this on a podcast, so honestly, drop some acid and we'll paint the picture. No, okay, just kidding. Really, this is one that I think if you're listening to this episode, you've probably seen this commercial, but just in case, it is available on YouTube and you can watch it for yourself to see what the hell we're talking about. We actually get an explanation of how that logo came to be. It's actually the combination of a light bulb and a fish, and as you combine them, you get Homer Simpson, or Mr. Sparkle, if you will.
Just two company logos of a textile plant or something, and a worker. It's workers something that combined into it. It was two very odd combinations.
Yeah, that somehow make dish soap. Bart gets bored. Homer is annoyed that it didn't actually explain anything, and he's just convinced that they stole his face to use it for their stupid logo. He's shocked by the explanation of the merger of the light bulb and fish thing. But at the end, I love though, he's like, well, that was a good ride while it lasted. Come on, kids, let's go home.
We are home.
That was fast. He's very depressed that he's not a big deal. He's just the two logos merged.
Oh, it was a Fishworks. That's what the Fishworks place. Sorry, that was bothering me.
It's all good. Once again, back at church, Marge is helping out old Captain McAllister on the loss of his Game Boy, which is just really fun.
The pain is real.
And as the sea captain leaves, Ned Flanders gives Marge a call and complains that Jimbo, Dolph, and Kearney have been hanging around the Leftorium, and Ned is afraid that they could start slacking at any moment.
Did you guys notice the sign in the background of the Leftorium?
No, what was it?
Oh.
Left-handed gear shaft. Only 3 were ever made.
Oh, nice!
I'm sorry, I said shaft and gear shift. Excuse me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm I want to see how this works. Please show me how this left-handed gear shift works.
I'm pretty sure it's just on the left side, bro.
I know, but that's just that's just so awkward.
Yeah, it is funny to think about. Except we talked about this on the episode with the Leftorium. It's absolutely not the case because every car made in Britain or any other country that drives on the other side of the road than us is a left-handed gearbox or gear shift.
My mind is blown, man.
Well, Marge advises that, it's his store, and if he politely asks them to leave, they should oblige. So just stand up for himself is her advice. But it turns out not to be necessarily great, because the kids were actually about to walk away themselves anyway. And again, they were, the whole danger here was they might start slacking. That's the fear. In a mall, mind you. So really, I think Ned, you could argue, should not have gotten involved at all, and arguably this is Marge's first bad advice, but it wasn't intentionally, it wasn't like she wanted to get Ned in trouble, but that's exactly what happens, because when Ned calls back again, this time the three boys are circling Ned on little mini bikes, Ned standing on a chair,
they're driving
very
in the mall.
Scared, and he's calling Marge, letting her know that things have progressed. But before Marge can give advice, they actually use a pair of left-handed scissors to snip the phone cord.
This is not looking good.
I don't know why I want to point this out, because it's really not, it's very mundane. In fact, it would make a great tweet or Instagram for the mundane Simpsons page that does the just boring shots of Simpsons backgrounds. I don't know if you follow them, but either way, there's a moment here where after Marge gets hung up on, she just kind of assumes everything's all right. She sits there quietly, and there's a brief moment where the water cooler in the back bubbles. And I don't know why I appreciate that animation so much, because it's honestly almost completely unnecessary, but it feels so impactful, just painting the picture of what that experience is like.
That little extra coat of shine that really just helps the episode out.
The next morning, Mrs. Flanders, Marge, shows up at the Simpsons' home and has a kind of unusual question to ask Marge. Marge, did your husband come home last night?
Yes, he did.
Oh, mine didn't.
Okay. Maud, acting concerned, yet she has her full outfit on and full makeup on. Is she really concerned? That bothered me so much on this watch through, and I don't know why this stuck out so, but she clearly had done her makeup. If your husband was missing and you were truly concerned, priorities. She doesn't really care.
Well, but she put her makeup on in a very concerned manner. And she got dressed in a very concerned manner. She was getting dressed, and she's like, I'm so concerned for my husband right now.
You're both missing the obvious. She obviously had a few too many white wine spritzers the night before. She went to sleep in her dress with her makeup already on and was ready to get up and talk to Marge the next day.
Yeah. She was with the devil the night before and just happened to come home and realize that Ned wasn't there.
That's exactly it.
Getting dressed and doing your makeup with concern. I like that one. We actually cut instantly to where we see Flanders is now being chased down the road by the three boys on their mini bikes, and it looks like he's been running all night. He's very distressed, and that's where we leave for the end of Act 2. I'll quickly point out that the time structure on these are very, very weird. The first act was 7 minutes, this one is close to 11 minutes, and the last act is barely 4 minutes. So, we are going to take a very quick break, but we'll be right back with the conclusion of In Marge We Trust.
Hey guys, it's Richie the Whiz Kid here from the Best Darn Diddly Review Show, and I'm here to talk to you about PopThreads.com, your #1 source for finding awesome nerdy t-shirts. Are you sick from not knowing what to wear when you go out with all your friends on the weekends? Well, don't have a cow, man. Go to PopThreads.com, and if you use the code Simpsons at checkout, you can save 15% on all your t-shirt needs.
We open up our third act and we see that Marge is concerned that she may have given some bad advice because whatever happened after she got off the phone with Ned, he did not end up coming home the night before. She goes the only place that she knows to seek advice in these types of situations, her own Reverend Lovejoy. And Lovejoy greets Marge, and Marge explains, Reverend, I gave Ned Flanders some bad advice. Now he could be in real trouble.
What happened now? Did he swallow a paperclip?
No, he's disappeared. Oh, I'm in way over my head. I mean, where do the helpers turn when they need help? And Lovejoy actually turns to look out of the basement window, and you can actually see, almost as if on cue, a golden ray of light shines down upon his face, almost as if God is signaling him. Now, there's like a sound effect and everything. The organ is actually playing is what it is, but the Simpsons commentary says that they're almost positive there was a joke here, and they don't remember what it was, but they can't imagine that they would do that without it being like somebody's headlights or like somebody walking down the street with a flashlight. And they say they don't remember actually animating it or completing the joke, but they probably had a joke written there and just decided to cut it for time.
Strip club next door, were having a malfunction with their lights outside, and it was the light shining through.
Any number of these things, yeah. But it seems like Reverend Lovejoy is kind of inspired to, get back to helping his people again. His church is in need, and he's actually the one that can be there. So Lovejoy actually answers the phone this next time when it rings, and sure enough, it's Ned Flanders calling from a gas station payphone where he has found temporary refuge from these boys chasing him down with their mini bikes. He can barely see anything, so he's trying to give him details of where he might be, and the only thing that he can see is that the price of gas is $1.49 which is enough of a clue to let Lovejoy know that this is, in fact, Donnie's discount gas. And guys, I have to tell y'all, when I was a kid, like, this was probably my favorite joke in the world, and I honestly probably, like, the first time I saw this episode was, like, the first time I probably had the thought, like, oh my god, the Simpsons writers are geniuses. I don't know why this one resonated with me so much.
It's great. There's probably the only gas station in the entire US of A that has 8 tenths on it, so I get you, Miles.
I think it also, like, educated me to the fact that, or maybe it was just, like, I just learned that gas prices always did that. Like, it was always, like, whatever the price is plus 9 tenths, and I still, to this day, just think that's so stupid. Like, I understand, like, why they do it on their end, but for fuck's sake, just round it up 1/10 of a cent and let's quit playing games with each other, man.
Mm-hmm.
Or round it down 1/10 of a cent so I have the incentive to drive across the street to use yours, which will probably burn more gas in the process.
Keep going. What else is wrong?
Alright, so Lovejoy, Marge, Homer, and the kids form a posse to go find Flanders. They actually all jump into Reverend Lovejoy's tiny ride, and they drive out to Donnie's gas, but when
they stop to get the Simpsons, like...
Yeah.
They even say, thanks for picking up the family.
I guess you could argue it'd be more bodies to help search, but yeah, that does seem out of place. So Marge questions Donnie, and it's a funny exchange. Donnie?
What?
Did you see a man being chased by some young hooligans?
I see lots of stuff.
Did you see that?
Yes.
And he just points to the zoo that's across the street. And we actually cut over to the zoo where we see Jimbo, Dolph, and Kearney have given up their chase. I absolutely love, they're like, yeah, I guess we proved our point. He'll think twice next time he tries to defend his business.
I'm sleepy. Let's go to school.
That's such a good line.
Which,
so
is it
good.
a school day? Or are they just going there on a Saturday so they can actually sleep? Because if it's a school day, then Bart and Lisa are out of school as well.
Oh, interesting observation. I maybe they have to do Saturday school.
Maybe. That's what I was going with.
Flanders is just relieved that this ordeal is finally over. No one's pursuing him until almost instantly, as soon as he catches his breath, a baboon jumps out of the freaking bushes right next to him.
Watch out, they have opposable thumbs!
There's a funny little bit here where, as the Simpsons are searching the zoo, there's a Japanese tourist couple that sees Homer and immediately are like, oh my god, it's Mr. Sparkle! And they start taking pictures of him.
Konnichiwa.
In the background, you can hear Ned screaming, and the family quickly realizes that sound's coming from Baboon County.
Which is the zoo's name for the baboon pit.
Sure enough, as soon as they run up and see Ned, they see that he's surrounded by an entire troop of angry baboons. He's screaming for help, and Lisa tells him to play dead, while Homer tells him to run around in circles, and Bart suggests he should act like a lion.
Swipe at the dominant male. Come on, Ned. Knock that monkey down.
I guess that would be kind of on Bart's side. Swipe at the dominant male would be the act like what a lion would do, right?
Maybe. I mean, again, Marge is the listen lady, so you gotta listen to her, right? And then Ned dies.
But I love that comment from Marge, because every now and then, like, she has a savage side, and we so rarely get to see that, but every now and then, she delivers a line, or it's just, in her actions or whatnot. It's both with this, where she's just like, come on, knock him down, and she's like really getting into it.
She gets very aggressive, yeah.
They've been giving her a lot better lines here in this season in particular. Like, it's slowly been building up, but they've been giving her more of the punchiness of the jokes, which I enjoy.
Yeah, I just love it when she like really gets in there. She's just like, yeah, like she enjoys it, because she's always, Marge is she's rather prim and proper for the most part, but I love it. I love it when she like just lets loose.
Feral Marge.
Do you think there are any ties to the fact that like her like seemingly more like aggressive behavior happened after the episode where she didn't fit in at the country club? So maybe now that she's like realized she doesn't want to fit in with those people, she's changed her entire like persona.
Hey, maybe it's just kind of not fitting in with the country club, which is also another really good episode. She just kind of realized that she needs to accept herself and how she is.
And she's fierce as fuck.
Feral Marge. I like that name. We're gonna stick with Feral Marge from now on.
I like fierce more than feral. Feral has other implications, but
yeah.
I really like this exchange when Marge tries to plead with the zookeeper to get Ned out of the cage.
You've got to get him out of there.
Geez, I'd like to, but if they don't kill the intruder, it's really bad for their society.
They're going to kill him?
Eventually. First they'll eat his skin.
You.
We see that, like, if you've been to the zoo and you've seen the baboon exhibit, like, there's always, like, the little, like, treehouse things that have, like, tire swings and all that good stuff, and this is where they have Flanders basically surrounded. It does not look good at all, but what they did not expect is it just so happens that the kiddie train runs irresponsibly close to the baboon exhibit in this particular zoo, and Reverend Lovejoy comes choosing to save the fucking day by driving through Baboon County, USA, and saving Ned Flanders. I love that there's all this callback to, like, the fact that, like, Lovejoy really would understand trains more than most because of the modeling, and, like, when he pulls the pin on the train cars, like, action movie style, so that they're able to separate and get away. It's just this beautiful moment, and you can see Reverend Lovejoy like officially gets his groove back, and he even does like a action movie style kick where he grabs a branch and does like a swing kick at some point, kicking them back into their area.
Double kicks the baboons out and say prayers, you heathen baboon.
And then, of course, it's all for absolute nothing because, like, and I love, like, the first time you see this, you see it turn and you're like, wait a second, isn't that just going to loop back around? And seconds later, that's exactly what happens. They're, like, celebrating that they're safe as they're strolling right back into the monkey train cars that they just separated themselves from.
Well, and to be fair, I think Reverend Lovejoy says something along the lines of, you know, it's only because of Marge that I understand that I need to be a reverend that doesn't just not help people.
Oh, don't thank me. Thank Marge Simpson. She taught me that there's more to being a minister than not caring about people.
Yeah.
And Flanders just laughs and is like, amen, Rev.
Amen, Reverend. Now entering Baboon.
But yeah, then it's like right back into danger, which just makes me really, really funny. Which makes me really funny. Makes me laugh a lot, I should say.
I like that Lisa said, oh, those poor monkeys, and Marge is like, they started it.
Yeah. So Reverend Lovejoy is back to business as usual. We find him back at the church preaching to the crowd. I wrote a note here to note the church sign and then forgot to write down what it says. Any chance your book has that?
I was like, my book's going to have that. It's like Conquest of the County of the Apes or something like that.
Yeah, it's basically him retelling his adventures fighting in Baboon County. And yeah, it's the Conquest of the County of the Apes.
Yep, that's exactly what it was. Look at that.
Nice. So Lovejoy's on the pulpit. Baboons to the left of me. Baboons to the right. The speeding locomotive tore through a sea of inhuman fangs. A pair of the great apes rose up at me. Bam! Bam! I sent them flying like two hairy footballs. A third came, screaming at me. And that's when I got mad. And Homer ends the episode with what I believe is my favorite line of the episode.
Now, that's religion.
And with a brief organ flourish, we fade to black. And that brings us to the end of our third act and to the end of the episode. In Marge We Trust. First and foremost, Ashes, thank you so much for joining us on this review. Would you like to add anything else at all about either this episode of The Simpsons or just The Simpsons in general?
He fail English? That's impossible. Sorry, I love Ralph. And it's funny because this episode has no Ralph in it. For me, like typically my favorite episodes have some semblance of Ralph Wiggum's and his Ralph Wiggumness, but this one didn't.
I like to think it's very much like that movie The Village, and Ralph Wiggum was actually in the baboon suit the whole time.
Yeah.
Makes so much sense.
Yes, that is perfect.
Well, it was absolutely a pleasure having you talk about The Simpsons. I get an absolute joy out of your podcast, the Throwdown Thursday podcast. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about that and also, where they can find you and stuff?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. This was a blast. Throwdown Thursday is a weekly podcast. New episodes happen every Thursday, believe it or not.
What?
I know. Gasp. It's a shock. We review characters in a similar fashion that other podcasts review films, and we talk about a plethora of different characters. Over the summer, we did a Game of Thrones series. In October, we just finished up our slasher villain series.
I got to be a part of that. It was a lot of fun.
Yes. We were actually joined by Mr. Most Days Off for our episode on Norman Bates, which was awesome. We can't thank you enough for joining us.
That was a blast.
And we have some great characters that we are planning on talking about coming up. We have a Star Wars series that we are currently working on that we can't say too much about because there's some stuff in the works. But
J.J. Abrams will kill you, and I get it.
Yeah, he knows where everyone. Probably, he's like, you said what about Lost?
Holds the grudge.
But, yes, we have some great episodes coming up from now till the end of the year, so we'd love for you guys to check us out. Again, we are called Throwdown Thursday. You can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts. Just search for Throwdown Thursday, like Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, you name it, we're there.
And I believe you're Ashes Von Nitemare pretty much everywhere online, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that is correct.
Right
so
on.
if you're looking for me specifically...
And they will be.
Just on Twitter and Instagram, I am Miss Von Nitemare. That is MissVonNitemare. You can search Throwdown Thursday. We have presence on we're everywhere. We're slowly taking over the world.
Wonderful.
Yay!
And that includes right here on Best Darn Diddly. And Rich, we are going to get back to that real quick. Rich, was there anything that you or that book of yours wanted to point out before we call this a day?
The only thing we didn't mention from my guidebook, The Simpsons, A Complete Guide to Our Favorite Family, are the noises that Reverend uses to wake up his sleeping parishioners. We have ambulance, bird, and disco whistle. So he's got those on cue to hit whenever he wants to. So I enjoy
hoping he was going to press disco whistle.
But other than that, I just want to say Like, again, it's just something that you love about the Simpsons writers. And I know there's plenty of smart writers out there that can do this in this day and age. But back in the mid to late 90s, there's something just so poetic about this episode, about the Reverend losing his mojo because of Ned Flanders, and then the Reverend having to get his mojo back because of Ned Flanders, who is the one person out of this entire episode that Marge herself could not offer good advice to. So there's just something so sweet about how they tie all that in, where it all has meaning. It's not just something necessarily random at the end, even though randomness does ensue. I just love how it just comes full circle by the end of the episode. I just think that's really, really touching.
Right on. I'll add 2 very quick things. One, they note that this is the first episode that is a starring role for Reverend Lovejoy. Again, a mission, I should say, of Bill Oakley and Josh Weinstein when they took over the show is to explore the other characters outside of the Simpsons family. And this episode very largely featured Lovejoy's emotional arc more than really any other character in the episode. So that's kind of fun. The other thing I will say is I'm not sure when it's going to happen. We're going to have to start keeping our eyes peeled. But at some point in future episodes, Mr. Sparkle will start appearing on the store shelves of the opening credits of the show. So let's keep a keen eye and see if we can note when that change occurs. Other than that, I'm going to do this real quick. Make sure you follow at @thewiz_kid23. I'm at Mr. Most Days Off. Our show is at Best Darn Diddly. That's DIDDLY. We cannot thank you enough for tuning in each and every week, for supporting us on Patreon, for tweeting at us, hitting us up anywhere on social media, and just supporting the show in general. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you once again to Ashes for coming on the show tonight.
Yay.
Make sure that you join or check out her show, the Throwdown Thursday podcast. It's an absolute blast. I recommend you start with the Norman Bates episode. It's a good one, I hear. Next week, make sure you come back because we're going to be reviewing a very popular episode. It's called Homer's Enemy, and I'll go ahead and announce it. We've got Bill Oakley on the show next week to talk about that. It's a wonderful conversation. I can't wait for you to hear it. Bill Oakley on next week's episode as we review Homer's Enemy.
Listeners to the left of us, listeners to the right, the speeding podcast tore through like a sea of inhuman fangs. A pair of new episodes were rising up at us. But bam! Biff! We sent them flying with our great review like 2 hairy footballs. But a new podcast, new episode came screaming at us. And that's when we brought in a Simpsons showrunner.
And until next time, be cromulent to each other.